You're watching Open Agenda. Here's our host, Joe White.
Welcome to Open Agenda. I'm your host, Joe White. In the studio with us now is Dr. Joe Venosa from Salisbury. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Michael Goldberg from Delmar. Thank you for being here.
Howdy, howdy.
So we're going to bring in Molly Hilligoss, and she's the president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity for Wicomico County. And I also want to bring in Michael Langford from Salisbury, who spends a lot of time at this city council meetings talking about housing. He's a property manager himself. We saw at the county council meeting Tuesday the deferral of property tax credits for Habitat. And we've heard the changes coming for Housing First for Salisbury. So I really wanted to bring in some folks who really understand this at the ground level and to see how they feel like these changes could have a positive or negative impact. And then after they're done, I'd like to come back in and talk about it from a political standpoint, because we're seeing it present at these council meetings, right?
Indeed.
So will you guys stick around?
Totally.
All right. So when we come back, we're going to bring on President and CEO of Wicomico County Habitat for Humanity, Molly Hilligoss, and Michael Langford, Property Manager in Salisbury. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. In the studio with us now is the President and CEO of Wicomico County Habitat for Humanity, Molly Hilligoss.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Hi, everybody.
Mike Langford, thanks for joining us today as well.
Thanks for having me.
We've seen you out in public a lot, and we've heard some of the programs that are involved with Habitat in the news lately, but I really wanted to find out from the source exactly some of the programs, how they work, and some of the challenges you see coming up ahead. So I want to first ask you about the down payment assistance program. Can you explain a little bit about what programs you offer there and how people can find out more information?
Sure. So I always encourage folks to go to our website, wicomicohabitat.org, just for more information about all of our programs. But our goal is to provide affordable homeownership and attainable homeownership. Our program is very specific. So when you think about a housing continuum, from, say, homeless to a luxury home builder, we are only serving a very narrow slice of that continuum. So the families that earn between 30% of the area median income and 80% of the area median income are the families that we are charged with serving. And that goes for becoming first-time home buyers, as well as preserving home ownership for our older adults that are needing critical home repairs.
Okay.
And so probably the most difficult part recently, because of the high cost of construction, even with a nonprofit, we get some special deals, and we use volunteers to help us, but the cost to build right now is over $200,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Wow.
Our cost.
Yes.
That's just materials and subcontractors. I mean,
inspections,
the cost of the land.
Yeah.
All that. So then when you have a family, let's say we have a family right now that she's a teacher assistant in Wicomico County Schools, and her son is going to buy the house with her.
Okay.
And he's in the trades, and their combined income is $62,000
Okay.
a year. Okay. So the most they can afford in terms of their first mortgage, the affordable mortgage, is around $1,300 a month.
Okay.
Okay. And it's really even hard to find a rental for $1,300 a month.
Yes.
So we are required to sell homes at fair market value. So even if it cost us $270,000 to build the house, if it appraises for $250,000, that's what we have to sell it for.
Okay.
So a family that earns $62,000 with current interest rates, the market at around 6.5%, let's say, they can only afford a principal and interest payment of $950 a month, plus the taxes and insurance to get to that $1,300, right?
Yeah, and that's not going to buy you a
So
$250,000
all
house.
they can get, if we sell it for $250,000, the loan they can get is for $150,000. So then we have a gap of $100,000 that we have to figure out how are we going to provide home ownership for that family, right?
Yeah.
So when you ask the question about down payment assistance, it's not that we're providing the down payment assistance, it's that it's yes and. So we're finding down payment assistance for that family, and we then come in with layered down payment assistance to make it work. Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta provides the money to the banks that they then lend, right?
Okay.
So they are required to provide special programs for first-time home buyers, especially for folks that are educators, firefighters, police officers. So they'll provide up to $20,000 in down payment assistance if the home buyer is buying through Habitat.
Okay.
Which is great.
Is that money they have to pay back, or is that just?
It is a forgivable.
Okay.
It's a forgivable 5-year.
So they
loan. As long
continue
as
to
they
make their
stay
payments and stay in the house?
As long as they own the home and they stay in the home for 5 years, poof, that down payment assistance disappears, which is great.
That's fantastic.
So, but in this situation, right, like this example where I've got a $100,000 gap.
Right.
Okay, so we get the $20,000. I'm still short $80,000. Where's that money going to come from? So either we layer it, or if we've spent the money from donations to build that house, we can then hold a silent second mortgage that would then stay in place until the family sells the house or refinances at some point in the future, and then Habitat gets paid back.
Okay, because they don't get that for free, but they're in
no.
second place
Right.
on the mortgage.
Yeah, there's no monthly repayment. There are other down payment assistance programs. For example, the Maryland Mortgage Program has some down payment assistance. They have 3%, 4%, 5%, up to 6%, but the interest rate is higher. The program and how much down payment assistance. Basically, you're going to pay for your down payment assistance in the rate. What's the solution, right? Because we can't serve more families faster if we have to come up with $100,000 gap for each family, right? And the reality is here in Wicomico County, homeownership has sunk to 58%. We are second to last in the state. Worst in the state is Baltimore City.
Oh, wow.
Wicomico County, 58% of all the homes are owner-occupied. 10 years ago, we were 6 points higher.
And like you mentioned before, cost of a rental is actually even higher than the $1,300 that these folks would qualify for.
For sure, yeah.
So if they continue to rent, they're never going to be in a position to be able to.
If we could get the rate down, right? So instead of 6.5%, if we could get down to 4.5% with permanent rate buydowns, if there were banks out there or CDFIs, Community Development Finance Institutions, that are also nonprofits that would lend money for home ownership, first-time home buyers at 4.5%, and then wait for it. Instead of a 30-year fixed, how about a 40-year fixed? I know it's a little controversial because it's like, whoa, how old will they be when they finally pay the house off? But the whole goal is to get the family into affordable home ownership, stabilize that payment so that they can have the opportunity to build generational wealth through home ownership, right? The $250,000 house, if we are able to get 4.5% fixed for 40 years, then that same family can afford a $212,000 loan instead of a $150,000 loan. Their principal and interest payment is the same, $950.
That's fantastic.
Right? And then Habitat, we only have to come up with $38,000 in down payment assistance. So then let's go back to the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta can provide $20,000. Now I only have to come up with $18,000 versus $80,000. That is how we can address the affordable, attainable homeownership at scale.
Well, and now,
What do you think?
Well, listen, anytime you have an opportunity to get someone who is no longer paying rent into to owning an asset, I'm a big believer that does help the community. For those out there who wish to rent, that's a choice that if they want to do it that way, I very much support them. But it would be nice if people had the opportunity to purchase and start to build that wealth.
And this isn't like this is not like I'm blazing any trails here. I mean, other habitats in the nation are already doing this. Habitat for Humanity International will allow us to offer 40-year fixed mortgages.
So what's keeping you from being able to do it now? Just find an institution to underwrite it?
Local banks are not interested in a 40-year mortgage right now.
Okay.
Really interesting.
Well,
Because the
I mean,
market demand is so high.
a lot of banks resell the mortgages on a secondary market, so there has to be an appetite to buy those loans on the secondary market. There really isn't much of that. And then also, not unlike people, right? Banks don't like a lot of change. And so
I want to ask you too. I was at the county council meeting on Tuesday, and they were talking about the property tax credits for Habitat for some of the properties, 14 properties that you own. It seems like it'd be very important for them to pass it. It did pass. What is that program, and why is it important to Habitat?
So it's really not a property tax credit. It is more of a deferment. Okay. So what we've asked them is that, let's say we're going to buy a package of homes, or even the ones we have right now are all scheduled to be sold soon. So it's really about the future. So let's say there's a landlord out there that's just tired of being a landlord, just wants to sell off, and so let's say we buy a package of 10 homes. We would then go to the county and say, county, we would like to exercise our right for a property tax deferment. So the property tax would stop. I mean, it wouldn't stop. It would just pause.
For 5 years, correct?
Right. And then it would give us an opportunity to rehab those homes.
Okay.
And then when we sell them to our first-time home buyers, then all that tax that we would have paid over those 5 years becomes due.
At the settlement table.
Settlement table.
Okay.
And so
the county's not out any money.
The county is out no money.
I think that's an important fact to put out there, because in the session there was a lot of discussion about just how that would work.
Right.
And the county made it very clear, although they're not collecting any additional interest during this deferment,
right,
they're not losing the money
Right.
that was already going to be owed. Well, and they talked about the overall cost. I mean, in the 14 properties that they talked about specifically, you're talking $20,000 over a 5-year period.
Yeah, it's not that much. It's minuscule.
But it helps you with your cash flow.
It
And I
does
think
help
that's
us
the
with the cash
important takeaway there.
So you can get more people into a home ownership situation.
Yeah, I mean, it is so expensive to rehab a home. My goodness, like just to replace the HVAC system, you're talking 10 grand.
Yeah.
On a small 3-bedroom, 1-bath house that was built in 2000, the roof is going to be $7,000.
Yeah.
I mean, all these are major
Renovations.
Yeah, the costs are huge.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the housing first. The city of Salisbury is making changes, and there seems to be some appetite to end that. What would that do to the mission of the work you're doing?
So, as I mentioned about the housing continuum from homeless to luxury home builders, that is on the unhoused, the homeless part of that continuum. So,
how does the housing first work now?
So I am not. That's not our sliver of the housing continuum. Okay. So I'm not following that.
Yeah, I want to ask you, Michael.
So the way that I view it is, you look at the history of this country, and post World War II in the 50s and 60s, you end up having the film. In the book originally, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because of asylums and abuses. And so people started suing asylums and sanitariums and the places where you would keep the most vulnerable population that Molly's talking about. And so these people no longer had long-term care facilities that were accessible, because nursing homes cost money. So if somebody has severe mental illness and there's not some place for them to go to, now they're potentially in a homeless situation. So the Housing First program, as I understand it, most charitably, is that the intention has been to keep people who otherwise would be constantly seeking services, constantly encountering first responders and having a cost to us collectively. Now they're in a housing situation where they're stable, and that the city is, I guess, paying their rent essentially to.
Well, my understanding was that it was based off of their income and different
qualifications.
Similar to what Molly was talking about, it's a sliding scale. It could be 30% of their income if they're at this level, 50% of their income, but they can graduate out of it.
So I think the my understanding of the shift that they want to make is going from a long-term to a short-term or transitional care model. So instead of keeping one person who maybe can't is on disability for mental health, and they maybe cannot hold a job full time and pay market rent, that person, instead of them having an option to be one place for 8 years, we're looking at trying to every 2 years transition, say, a single mom with kids who had a back surgery through a work injury, got workers' comp, but that's not enough to pay rent because that's only a percentage of your income. Now you're facing homelessness. We can, in 2 years, help that person get through that medical issue, which is reasonable, and get them back onto their feet.
Well, I want to ask you, Molly, what do you think is the future of Habitat? What are the challenges that you expect to face? When we're sitting here 3 or 5 years from now, what do you think we'll be talking about?
Gosh, I mean, so our vision is to build more families faster, like our local affiliate strategic vision. How do we serve more families faster in both home ownership and home preservation? So right now we have 4 different programs, basically, to fund critical home repairs. And so one is a poverty plumbing grant. So that's very exciting for us. We are one of 5 agencies in the state that was able to receive that award.
And it just made the news, right?
It just made the news, right. So $300,000 over 2 years it sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but these folks that are coming to us, like they're having a failing septic or they need to do drain feeds.
Not small ticket items.
Right. So our goal is to continue to serve a minimum of 30 families a year with critical home repairs. And then I'd like to see us be selling at least 15 homes a year.
Wow.
Yeah, if we can get the permanent rate buy downs, the 40-year amortization, and layered down payment assistance, that those 3 things are going to really set a trajectory of, again, serving more families faster. We also are the recipient of $400,000 for rental assistance.
Okay.
And so that is through the communities. That's a community schools rental and utility assistance program through Department of Housing and Community Development. And we are going to run through that very quickly. But
what will you use that for?
It'll be for rental and utility assistance for families that have children in what are considered community schools in Wicomico County.
And how long do you expect that grant to last you? Is it through this winter season, or is it for a whole year?
We have until next September, but $400,000 is going to go. It's going to go like that. Yeah. I'm guessing by January it'll be gone.
How would people get more information about that program? Where would they go?
They can go to our website, wicomicohabitat.org, and there's right on the front page, there's one of those little sliding banners. The first one's our Chefs for Habitat. So
okay. Oh, yeah. When is that?
Tickets go on sale November 1st, and that is March 7th, 2026.
What's your theme this year?
It is, it's a Hollywood theme, so it's...
Has anybody ever left that event hungry?
No.
Okay. So if you're a hungry person and you want to help the community,
buy a ticket. It's so much fun.
What else is there to do in March, really?
But what I'm saying with the back to the rental assistance, you click on that little banner, and it takes you to an online application, and then even the landlord can click on that, and they can apply for their tenant.
Wow. So, Molly, is there any resources that are coming from the federal government?
I'm so glad you asked me, because I actually brought you some information on the Renewing Opportunity and the American Dream to Housing Act of 2025 that was passed in July. And there's like all of this funding that could be available to address housing issues. I will be sending this out to our elected officials so that at the county and city, if there are grant opportunities to address housing,
so
they're aware of that.
This is an opportunity for local governments to apply for grants from the federal government that could be used in our community.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes. And what I've noticed in the past is that there haven't been, hasn't been applications made.
Do they have a grant writer at the city currently? Do you know?
They just hired a grant writer. She reached out a couple days ago to me.
Okay.
Okay, excellent.
Because we have a city grant right now for home rehab.
So I would like to have you back on. To
Well,
talk about that. Thank you
okay,
very
so
much.
then you can start reading
All right. Thank
in
you
your
very
free time.
So thanks for watching this segment of Open Agenda. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Open Agenda. Dr. Joe Venosa, thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
Mr. Mike Goldberg, thanks for coming back in.
Yes, sir.
It's very interesting to hear what Molly had to say, not just about programs that Habitat is offering, maybe some of the future and even maybe some of the other challenges that are for the unhoused folks who are not quite at the level that they're serving. We've seen it with the city government. We've seen it with the county government. We chase this albatross that is affordable housing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe, do you think are we hitting the right notes, or are we just going the wrong way?
Well, I think any good is good, right? So I think what Habitat does is good, and I think those efforts should be, celebrated and commended. I think part of the problem is just the scale of the problem, and we were talking about this off camera. But part of the issue with the local aspects of housing supply and cost is that you can't distinguish it from the broader societal stuff.
Sure.
And that's part of the
we
problem.
live in a capitalistic world where the market is going to drive these factors.
And yet there's so much government regulation, and then there's the influence of the private sector, and then there's the historic role. So it's like you have all these really complicated competing entities, and some cooperate, and then you have the history behind it. And in the end, the results speak for themselves.
Well, let's frame it in the context of some of the density issues that's been discussed in the city of Salisbury and the properties that have been sold off to, developers with ties to the former mayor.
Sure.
We're fighting this housing battle, but doesn't it seem like there's selected developers who are going to make a lot of money on what's going on?
And not only that, but it seems to run contrary to what someone like Molly and Habitat for Humanity are doing, which is, their goal is to expand home ownership. And I fully agree with that. You had made a point earlier that, any kind of effort you can do to develop home ownership is a good thing, because I think people generally are going to treat what they own better. Certainly it's a way of building wealth. Now, again, there's always going to be renters, there's going to be people that are more transitional. That's just an aspect of life. But it's interesting that most of the housing approaches we've taken, certainly in the city, and to some extent the county, are more tipped to the scale toward developers for rentals rather than genuine generational home ownership. And that's, to me, the great fallacy here.
Well, Mike, I want to ask you, you were at the county council meeting last Tuesday, and you've been there when they've discussed property tax credits for things like in the Horizon Fund for the Ross building, which is more dormitory style apartments. One of the things we got to ask Molly Hilligoss was about this $20,000 property tax deferral. Yet at the same time, we're giving millions of dollars away to something like Mentis Capital that they don't have to pay back.
Well, when you're subsidizing developers, essentially that's corporate welfare. These programs help, the ones that Molly discussed, help people on the lower end of the income scale. Personally, I've got issues with both, though. I think that government involvement in home mortgages has distorted the market. And someone who spent most of his life as a commercial real estate lender, I don't think it's a legitimate function of government to have taxpayers taking the risk for homeowners. But this market has been distorted, particularly since World War II, with VA loans. Women came back from World War II. We had just come out of the Depression, during the war, at the beginning of the war, and they deserved some help, after serving our country, defending our country, but they distorted the market. And when you have secondary markets that exist now, a secondary market is when if let's say you're a bank and you make a loan, then you sell that loan to somebody else.
I think that's a lot of people's big critique, is that we don't have the same traditional banking and mortgage system we had after World War II.
We
right?
don't. And it actually increases the risk, because if I'm originating a loan and I can sell it to somebody else, I can make a bad loan and I can sell it to another guy.
Well, didn't we just see this in 2008?
Well, we did. That was a little bit more complicated, because then you were dealing with mortgage-backed securities, where they would take a pool
Tranche,
of mortgages, a whole
bad
pool,
mortgages.
and in many cases, yes, the subprime loans, and then sell those, and the mortgages would, and the underlying real estate would be the collateral for issuance of a security.
What are you suggesting, that as good natured and good intended as these programs are, they're actually pushing an artificial balloon of making housing less affordable for those who would have otherwise had affordable housing?
There's no question about it in my mind, and I don't think most people fully understand the extent of the risk that our entire banking system is taking. For instance, a lot of people will remember the savings and loan crisis back in the early 80s. I was, dab smack in the middle of that back in Texas.
It was you. No.
Well, I never made a loan that was foreclosed. I can tell you that. I'm very, very proud of it. Didn't make as many loans as the other guys did, but the asset quality was very good. But the that's never been paid for. We are still paying for that, and we'll be paying for that, and our children and grandchildren will be paying for that. Again, it gets back to a loan originator selling that loan or that pool of loans on the secondary market, and the asset quality is poor, and you wind up in foreclosure.
And that's the thing too, that this discussion of housing, it's to some extent it's the same in the problem, but when we talk about the developer subsidies, what's crazy about that whole scenario is that doesn't even have anything to do with even the possibility of home ownership. It's often
it's for rentals.
Yeah, so you're not even getting to that point, right?
Well, that's exactly what I want to ask you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, from a political standpoint, why does it seem like our current county executive, our former mayor of Salisbury, why are they so quick to align with these developer subsidies? And then you're looking at like candidates like Megan Alton, who's thrown her hat in the ring for county council. Why are they so quick to do this? Why is this able to be such a political football to their advantage?
Well, I mean, I think you got to follow the money. That's one thing. I think some of those candidates and currently elected officials, they have campaign finance reports that answer some of that. I think also part of it, to be honest, from my perspective, is just there's a lack of originality too. People look at the grants and the grant block system as a lifeline, which it often is. But what that also does is it puts people in a very subservient role, so that you find yourself, giving this kind of almost imperial authority to a group of developers who often don't actually do anything on the back end. Because look, I come from a family of construction folks. Like, they'll tell you right away, builders make their money and developers on the front end, right? That's what they do. And then they're going to do what they're going to do, as we talked about in a recent episode with Trish Melvin about all the development that's happening in Fruitland without the subsidy programs. So you're going to have building, and theoretically, if you believe in market forces, there's going to be a need for it, and there will be an equilibrium. I don't necessarily agree with that, but let's say that's true. We're doing, to Mike's point, we're really tipping the scales, and we're not even getting home ownership at the back end. We're getting, at best, luxury rentals for some, and we're getting other facilities that are unattainable for others. We've been following these programs for years, right? More than a decade. Okay, so what's the result? We haven't solved, we haven't really made a dent in any of our affordability issues. In fact,
It's gotten worse.
it's gotten worse, even though we technically, according to certain people that follow the former mayor and a few other people's policies, they say, well, we built all these units. Okay, well, go ask anybody living in Wycomico County in the city of Salisbury. Are things more affordable? Are those programs more affordable? Are people's rates for water and sewer that they have to pay, have they gotten more affordable despite all of these promises we were sold? And everybody knows the answer to that question.
Yeah. So why does it feel like both Democrats and Republicans, current candidates, current, former, future ones maybe, Why does it feel like they're all kind of speaking the same jargon? Is this a uniparty system?
Because they all serve the same masters.
Okay.
That's my view.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate your insight.
Sure thing.
Thanks for watching this episode of Open Agenda. We'll be back later this week with another new episode.
Stay still. Sit on your hands.
Tractor's hard here.